Right, for the next part of this project, we've just done the yacht. We're going to do the series of these three rather nice studies of photographs at night of figures walking in the marketplace. And I'll show you the loose technique of doing these in watercolour. We'll sketch them out, try and get the flow and the movement of the figure, the most important parts, the salient points. Don't want all the details, eyes, noses and mouths, just the movement and the shapes of the figures. Most of it's almost silhouette anyway. And then we're going to use a sword brush to try and flick them in as simply as possible, as quickly as possible, just almost making a caricature of them. And then we'll do very loosely, we'll do the design and the light and the atmosphere around them as an impression. So they're going to be very much impressionist watercolours to show you how you can do figures quite loosely, simply and quickly. What to do is keep the drawing as simple as possible, as you can see here, just the basic shapes and just the salient points of what we need. And here just a few marks to show the angles and positions and shapes, and we'll simply fill within those. The main thing is to have light and dark, warm and cool, and the main angles and positions of the figures to give them character. Let's have a look at how we can sketch those out. Right then, to keep things as simple as we can, we'll mark the edge of the papers here with the quarters and half, just so I know where I'm approximately going. We'll do the same on here. Very quick, easy way to work. We don't have to be exact, we're not doing a photograph. Remember, we are doing a painting, we're working from something, we're just using it to get the effects that we want, an impression of something, an impression of the time and moment. Now, this girl here, her head's coming just below the quarter, so about here. If I was going across this way, quarters and eighths, quarters and half, then it comes just inside that quarter here, so her head's going to be approximately here, and her leg comes right down off here. Now the centre of gravity is from the back of her head to the back of the heel, so if I just draw a line down there, I know that that centre of gravity is going to be about here, and I need to be able to characterise her, if you like, so I'm just going to make a basic form, just sort of simplify her shape. Her face is coming around here. Let's simplify that shape of that face. We don't want to go into detail. Down into the shoulder, round into the shoulder, feel the back of her arm there coming down, hair comes forward here, right the way down and round. We know that that leg's going to be, the heel's going to be about here, so that arm has to come back more, at that length. We've got her hair coming down across her face here, down through here, across her shoulder there, about here, got a chest down to a hand, which is about, these are the quick sketches. This is how we'd have to work if somebody was outdoors and they were moving past us, so we've got to be just as fast. The hair comes down and across here, that arm comes back there, around, forward, basic shape, into her pocket here, triangle of hand there, so they're both level. Then the coat comes out from here, round, down to there, leg comes forward, and we know it's going to come back down to here, so it's simple, knee curve, bring it forward, keep it simple, the boot comes around there, this leg comes back from here, comes out from behind, comes right through there, comes out from behind, and then we have a foot coming forward, that space there, foot comes down, right round, forward. We'll keep it simple, don't want an ugly shape. And there's that figure, as simple as that, and that's what we can paint. We don't need much more than that, just perhaps where the centre point is here. Now let's go back to the next fella, who's a little bit higher, so an angle back just a little bit higher there. His foot comes just in between these two, so his centre point is here, and that's from the back of his head, so the centre point of the back of his head's about here, and he's a little bit higher, so we know that his head is going to be about this size and shape, and it's at that angle. That angle's quite important. That's the back of his ear there, up to the shape of the forehead, the face is here, his nose, don't want to put too much detail in, but that, there we are, look, that's his head almost done. Neck, down into the neck here, round, the shoulder comes out there, down in a curve, comes out from his neck here, round to that shoulder, down. It's just about the same level as her elbow, so it's going to be about here. There's the angle, there's the forearm coming through here. Keep it simple. His other hand comes down to join here. We've got the wedge shape of his hand here. Keep it simple, just a couple of shapes for his hand, like as simple as that, the drawing. Then from the collar here we've got the shirt coming down, in, out, round, down to a point there, quick as that. Down here for the trouser leg, down round again. Here again we've got that shape coming out of the coat here, and then this leg comes back, and we're coming down to his coat that comes around to there, pretty tight round him. That's his crutch here. That leg comes in, down and round. It comes forward a bit because he's going to be balancing between the two legs. I was going to think of the back of that here, but it's actually balancing between the two legs. So it comes forward there and across, down around his shoe. Shoe comes forward. That leg then comes back to here. We see a little bit of it coming back there. So there we are. That's all we need for him. The fellow behind here now. And again, he's a bit lower. I take this angle down to here. The centre of his head comes about the centre of the paper, so I'm going to take him just a little bit further back for better composition. His shoulder comes round from here. Top of his head is here, we said. He's got jersey wrapped around himself here like this. Keep it as simple as we can, look. Just simple forms and shapes. The arm comes down, round, and down here. There's his hand. Keep that simple. Out there for his shoulder, chest, elbow comes around. All we want to do, as I say, is characterise him, so it goes into his pocket here. And his hair is coming forward. I think he's a Russian by the look of his hairstyle. Most of Polish and Russian here, so keep that simple there. We'll make that shoulder come out a little bit more there, so it's a slight tilt of his head, tilting his head that way just slightly. And then we come down, he's in his pocket here, his leg comes down, quite a stocky fella. Then his shirt comes around, that angle comes out, that angle comes out. That's a low crutch here, round to his knee, round to his leg. Then we can do the front of the shin, back of his. That one goes walking backwards slightly, so we've got him just his feet coming out like that there. This foot comes a bit further down. That foot's about there. This foot's a bit further. And it's coming down onto the heel, and he's actually got that foot sort of upwards more there. So he's just hobbling, wandering along there, hands in his pockets. Now the next one is the lady just across from him here, with the child, and she is looking this direction. So we'll have her with the head squarish like that, and that's the front of her face. Again, we want to keep the shapes as simple as we can again. Down and round, there's the shoulder, here's her right shoulder, or her left facing us, down to her hand here. Her hand comes almost on a level with his hand, so it's about here. Keep that a simple shape. That arm comes through, she's got her other hand just a little bit above, and that's linked to the boy's arm next to her, which comes into the form slightly here, so his shoulder coming in. He's then got a face that's looking that way. We'll just flick his hair in, there's the angle of the hair, we don't need his face. And he's leaning slightly that way, so there's the centre of him. That's his shoulder and arm coming down, quite a lot below. His hand comes down to about here. And then in, down, round for his coat, his leg. Again, he's just ambling along down to there, got his boot, down to there, so the foot's coming forward here. Drawing things way off here because I'm drawing at an angle. Back down to here, got to come up a bit and put this into the camera. That leg comes down there, forward here. She's at a funny angle because I was drawing in perspective. Go back and do all of that figure. This is the problem with drawing in perspective. I'm trying to draw across the paper for you to see, but actually I have to stand up to see this now because all of this is absolutely out of angle because I was drawing, looking along the paper, so I've got to now adjust these figures just quickly, like that. There we go. That's got him back again. And then we've got to get that shoulder out, down, and get the angle right there a bit better. Down there like that. His hand is up here, the right place. His shoulder comes over here. His head then is about here. Like that. His face, shoulder, comes down there. Bit simple. There we go, down and round, and his hand is coming up here, we know that. That's his leg coming down there then. That one goes back there, and now we've got it about right, now we've changed the angles. And this other foot is coming out towards us here. Now for her, come down the inside here. She's got point of weight down in between the 2 feet here, so point of weight, and her foot is about level with his here. So we come down to that coat, bit of leg, her calf, and then her foot comes down to there. And that form comes and joins in with this one, and her foot comes out from behind here like that. And we've just about got those figures sorted. Now we just have to work out the background. Simply, oh, one more figure over here who's trying to back them, trying to sell them something. We'll put him in as well. They're going to be a little bit closer. So I'm going to bring him to about here. And his head is a little bit higher than hers, so the angle ought to be about here. He's leaning onto that left leg, so his head is almost over the left foot. And he's leaning forward like this, looking at them. His shoulder's coming up and his arm comes out here. Like that, and this arm comes down, shoulder muscle, then this arm here, down to here, there's his hand, keep it simple, then his leg comes down as I was just saying, and his foot finishes just above this angle here, so it's a bit further back, so his foot's about here. He's quite a chunky chap. Work him out, right, his belly comes forward and then that leg comes out, forward, a bit lower down, there we go, forward like that, and his foot comes out that way, so he's a bit more arm just there maybe, let's get his hand in a bit more here. Then we've got to work out what's happening above and around, just loosely, where things are going to come. We've got more figures going on behind him. We've got another figure behind here that's quite useful. We'll put him in. Got his face there, collar, shoulders, it's quite broad, dark shape, and his legs just ambling on forward here. Even as simple as that. and then there's a load of little figures behind which will just indicate as being there with red and orange and so on. Over her head, back to here, the signs that are going on behind them. There's very light white, two light blue and light signs here. The building's coming up in perspective back behind here. And then all of these coloured lights coming through, orange and yellow and so on here on these poles. Above her head, got various things hanging there, which we can just indicate. So we don't need to go into detail. All we want is an impression of things. You can see how quickly we can build a loose picture. All I need is these angles correctly drawn, just to give me a feeling of the place. There we go, and that's ready to paint. So there we've got our 3 drawings ready to go. Right, for this painting I'm hoping I'm just going to need a couple of swords, flat, my oval mop and a round. These are quite stiff little brushes, so I've got more control with them. They're not the floppy swords that you do fine lines with. And let's have a go now at painting this nice and loosely. Now in this one I'm going to paint the figures first and the background afterwards. In the next one I'm going to do the opposite for fun and just show you how it can affect it. But I want to keep to very simple brush strokes. So I'm going to use the sword first of all, medium sword here, which allows me to paint sideways or lines or in twists and curves. And we're going to paint very much wet into wet, just to start it off. So we want to start with our lightest colours here, which in this case is going to be aureolin yellow. So I'm going to put a thin wash of aureolin yellow all the way down here. Keep it as simple as I can. The whole thing is going to be aureolin yellow. Look for the colours. So I'm going to take some turquoise and add that down there for the cool colour, right the way across down here and into pink. So it's splashing the paint on and enjoying. Take some cobalt violet, bring that down there across her arm, let that blue come into it. So we've got a lovely mixture of cobalt violet and blue there. The other side, back to the warmer colour, the aureolin yellow. We'll bring that down there, letting it blend in. So we're going to paint this as simply and quickly as possible, just to show you how we can paint figures in an impressionist style. Right, we've got that coat just about done in one go. Now, it's be a little bit warmer in the middle, so I'm going to take a little bit of rose. I'm just going to add a little bit of rose into this part here, just to give it a little bit more depth there. And we'll put some red on where our hand is in a minute. Now I want to come down here. Down there I want to use a cobalt blue at first and paint the whole of that. Doesn't matter if it drops in slightly. I've got the paper running downwards here, just right angle, so I'm pretty sure the paint's going to spread down that way. There we go. And a couple of strokes. Now some ultramarine blue, go a bit darker. It's done into a shoe here, down around that shoe. Real quick painting, just a quick studies, quick brush strokes. Keep it simple. If it comes over there slightly more, down there. Let that dry down a bit. Now while that's drying down a bit, because it's still too wet at the moment to drop much in, I'm going to drop a little bit of deep blue into here and take some Prussian blue and drop it down into the legs here, all the way down, just letting it do the lovely wet into wet effect that we want. Down to the front of that foot, down the front of a leg here. We'll put a bit of purple into that in a moment. Take a bit of purple now while it's still so wet and flowing. Just knowing what watercolour will do, and the only way you're going to do that is to experiment and explore. So we'll let that purple come down into that foot, down around the leg here, and a little bit down behind the arm there. And we've got to start painting into the face here in a minute. Right, this chap here, let's do his face first. I'm going to take some raw sienna and just place that right across his face. Just a quick wash of raw sienna there. And while I've got it on my brush, we'll put it into his arms, down here. A little bit on his foot there. While I've got the raw sienna on my brush, I'll go back to her and we'll just add a bit of that warmth in and around the face here. And some of that cobalt violet, the lovely light that was shining on it, we'll drop that in there too. So it goes down to an almost shadowed area. And a little bit coming into her hair and round the warmth of the hair down here. The cobalt violet. All the way down there. And her hands, I want to have a little bit of that raw sienna. You see how quickly that figure is forming, just with loose painting. It's an effective light that we want. Let that dry a bit more because we've got to be under control. Take some cobalt violet, just drop it into his face here, his nose, just to give the feeling of an impression of his face. It's all we want, just the impressions. The shadow of the arm there, a bit darker on his hand. Now I'm going to take some burnt sienna and just add a bit of more warmth to that hand, around that ear and down the neck here, the shadow of the neck. You see how quickly this is forming around her neck here. A little bit more orange there, so I'll take a little bit of cadmium orange and drop it in there. When we've got that cadmium orange on there, we'll just indicate her mouth is there. That's right. Leave that. Let's come back to his shirt. We've got a nice pink colour coming down here, so while I've got that orange on my brush, I'll just drop a little bit of pink down his shirt. And then a little bit of the blue into the edge of the shirt here. Really look for these colours, and so we can't go too far, it's still very wet that, so I've got to come onto here now. And while I've got that blue on my brush, let's take a little bit of that turquoise, and we'll just indicate his collar here, and a little bit of the side of the arm down here, and down this side. And on his trousers too, we've got quite a nice light blue, so I can use the sword brush now to flick round there. All in one go, and it's quite a bit warmer down the front, so I'm going to take a bit of the aureolin yellow and just use a bit of that to sort of give a greeny tint down here. And then I'm going to go back to my, really look for these colours, back to my cobalt violet, and drop in cobalt violet down here, front of his trousers. And down the front there a bit. Quick as that. While it's still wet, we'll take some of the cobalt blue and we'll just start to work in some of these creases coming in, down and round. Just quickly flicking them in with this brush is so nice because it allows me to twist it and turn it. Now we're going to go to the ultramarine blue, the stronger blue, bring that into there, because there's quite a few blues going on in this. All the way down there, just one, find the back of his leg there, and then down the centre of the jeans there, just down that bit here, round. And we're going to do quite a lot of the rest with the darker blue, so now I'm going to round to the indigo now. Just bring that indigo down in the crutch here, across, down the centre between the two legs. Quite dark inside there, down around that knee, down to here, a little bit coming out the back there, around his foot, on the toe. You see how easily and how quickly we can make the figure. While I've got it on my brush, this is drying off a bit now, we can come back down to here, and we can just indicate some of these marks and shadows here around the hands and arms. Down into there. I want to make it a little bit of greener blue there. I'm going to take a touch of green and blue and just darken it around her face here. Just drop that in there. Down around the hair, top of the head here. Down and around. We'll just indicate the eyes, just don't want to go into all the details. Nose, where mouth is there. We'll lift a bit out in a moment. Down around here. Now I need to just lift a little bit out because I put a bit too much in down here. So I'll just use my brush dry to just suck off that bit there. And we'll just take the orange again and come back in there with that, our mouth and face, and there we are. a little bit more there. Just a feeling of it, that's all we want. So that warmth now coming in and down and round. Now back to him. Let's take that nice deeper greeny blue that we had earlier and flick his hair in here. How quickly we can do it. And there we are. And his ear. Maybe a little bit of his eye there, don't need much. Hardly need to do anything on the features at all, in fact. Now I've got to go darker, so a little touch of the Prussian blue. Just dropped in on top of his head here. And back down the back of his head here. Now this part here is, we're going to make a warmer version, a blacker version of the blue by adding some burnt sienna to it, which will make it a bit darker and warmer. And I want to make quite a dark coat on him, and in a couple of strokes we can make this coat look. Use your brush, straight down there, cross, down around his arm here. Don't worry about a little bit of dry brush work as well maybe. Keep it lovely and loose, and we can just flick in these folds in his arm, like that. And that figure is virtually done in just a few strokes. So what we want to get to is an impression of something. It comes down there dark, and underneath here it's also quite a bit darker and warmer, so a little bit more brown into it, just to go underneath him here, round to there, and there we go. That figure is virtually done. She needs to be a bit darker now, so I'm going to drop a little bit more of that colour I've just made with the Prussian blue and the burnt sienna. I'm going to drop a little bit more in down and around here, just to make her a bit stronger on the shadows. Just quick flicks of the brush, that's all we need. And a little bit down and around the neck here. A little touch there for the mouth. A bit darker into there. Of course he's got a few creases on there. Now we go to this figure. While I've got that colour on my brush, we'll use it around his hair here, and then I'm going to put in this collar he's got, and just two strokes we have his scarf. Very useful brushes these, as you can see. I just want to lift this out a fraction and the mouth go back a bit. Just put a little bit of colour into the mouth there, just the tiniest touch. Right, back to him here. We've got this light blue. I'm going to take some cerulean blue this time and just coat him in cerulean blue in a couple of strokes. So cerulean blue, nice and thin, and we need to make it warmer, so I'm going to add some cobalt violet in just a moment, being careful not to touch too close to this black. I don't want it spreading out into it now. I could have put the black on afterwards, but here we go anyway. And there, while I've got water on my brush, I'll just thin this line of his hair out so that the hair comes around his head here. Give the feeling of the hair in one go. Now I want the cobalt violet again. So we'll have a warmer colour coming in here. Right down through there to here. And I'm going to use some mixture of the green a little bit to bring in the shadows into this shirt. The shadows. Got an arm coming around there. We need to find the colour of his face, so yet again I'm going to take the a little bit of rose this time and coat his face in the rose, and then drop in some of the raw sienna to make it a bit warmer and darker, especially in the centre in a minute. So there we have his face. Now we want a bit of burnt sienna right down the middle with the shadow part. There we go. You see how quickly we can form it. I want the green down here. Take some sap green. He's got camo trousers on, so we'll just drop that sap green down those trousers. The green actually comes down the centre of the leg, and a little bit of the green comes into the hair there too. want to just take out some paint there a little bit. And I want him a little bit warmer in the face here, so I'm going to drop in a little bit more rose just here. That's like that, just tickling those colours in, and we'll darken the rest in a moment. Now we've got to go darker down here, so we'll take the camo, we'll take some of the darks that we made earlier, the blue and the brown, and we'll drop that in a sort of camo pattern down and around his trousers here, down to his knees, keeping it simple. Now we need the warmer colour, so I'm going to take a bit of the orange that we used earlier, cadmium orange, and drop that right down the side of his leg here. Just simplify it all the way down there, here. And his hand wants a bit, that hand's just in his pocket. This guy's got a bright red stripe around his wrist, so now it's a bit drier, I can just put that round there. Just bring out the colours a bit. And we've got a little bit more warmth happening just down under this leg too, from the reflections of the lights in there. A bit more warmth into his hand here. And possibly a little bit more into the face here and there. And we just want to indicate, only indicate, not draw the eyes. That's it, that figure's virtually done. Just need to go in a little bit darker into the edges, the shadows around his arm here. While it's still wet, just making the folds. And his shoes. So he steps out here. Now this figure, again I'm going to go to my aureole in yellow for the hair. Drop that in. A little bit greeny, that yellow, but it's just nice for the job. Down to here. And while I've got the aureole in yellow on my brush, his coat wants to be with that as well. And the top of this lad's hair. Simple strokes. It's a bit warmer now, so I'm going to take some of the cobalt violet and just touch her face with that. Same with the boy. And then he wants to be a bit darker, so we'll just put a bit more red down there. Down that side of his face. Her nose, her hands holding his, down here as well. This guy here, a little bit of light blue reflecting on that side of the face, and then we have the warmer side here. I'm going to take a little bit of burnt sienna and just let that come down and in. And some more warmth on his hand, and coming into the face, down and round, keeping it simple. Now sort of lift out a little bit on the face here, a little bit too dark, that's it. Then we can take some of that dark again while it's still wet and just go across the top of her hair and just streak that down with the tip of the brush. Again, the beauty of these sword brushes and the fact that we can angle them to any angle we want almost and do this sort of work. Coming right down to there. A little touch just to show her eyes, glasses, and the same with the boy here. Just a little touch there. He's got darker hair on top too, so we'll just darken around that, around his hair, back of his neck here. Keeping it as simple as we can. his trousers, we'll do there first, the cobalt blue, press it down that side of his leg. Nice simple strokes all the way down here, there, a little bit round his foot, down the back there there's some blue, down the side of her there's some blue, across her chest here, then down the side of that arm a little bit, some of the reflection going on down in front into here, then there's some green going on, down that arm especially. Right, and we want to go back to our dark again, so I'm going to make the Prussian and the burnt sienna again, nice dark, and with fairly strong paint go in behind her here, up and in and around. A couple of brush strokes, keep it simple. A little bit of dry brush work again. Down her arm here. Around the bottom there, just the hands and arm together. And then mix some more paint up. And her legs, trying to do a couple of easy strokes. That's it. Shoes at the front, we'll put a bit of orange in there in a minute. Now the boy. And you see there we've almost got those figures completed. So I've got a little bit darker just in her eye here, just a little touch, maybe there, don't want too much. A little touch on the mouth. Just an indication of it, that's all we want each time. Gradually bring these things out, just got a watch on there. Now, for the lady, we need a bit of cadmium orange again. Do some chrome yellow at first and a little bit of orange, just to show her flesh on her feet here. Same with the boy, down to his shoes here. And we want to be a little bit warmer on her hair, so I'm going to just bring back a little bit of that cadmium yellow and bring it into the hair here. Same with him, a little bit more on his forehead here. And those figures, you know, just loose, that's about all we're going to need. Really don't need much more on there. We could afford a little bit more warmth here and there, so I'm going to take a little bit of the cobalt violet again and just put a bit more cobalt violet in here and there to warm it up. Now I'm going to finish this figure off over here. Just take a little bit of that dark. Now he's drier, we can afford to just touch him up a little bit. He's looking this way, so I'll just find his eyes there because he's trying to attract their attention and sell them something. And again, we want quite a light blue there, so I'm going to take some cerulean and put that down his arms. That side of his coat is a warmer blue. And then we want to go right back to our dark that we made earlier, and as much as we can, as simply as we can, in just a couple of strokes, we want to put that in, and there he is. Just a couple of strokes each time. And we can put the shading in on his arm there. An impression of him. I'm going to be a bit darker still. Let's get his jeans in now, around here. Around his hand down. Try and keep it to just a couple of strokes to get the quintessence, to get the very bare bones of the figure. Then all we have to do is paint the surrounding. A bit darker just in here for a bit of shadow. And there, just a little bit across her arm there. Don't need too much more. A bit darker just into there. We'll let those just dry off a little bit. Whilst they're drying, I've just got a couple of bits of warm to put in still for the flesh. So I'm just going to take some cadmium orange and a bit of rose in a minute and just try and show that he's got bare feet there. Or human feet, but haven't got anything on, not bear's feet. Warmth down there. Bit more blue on his shoes here. Right. The next job, when it's dry, will be to work on the lights and darks and the warms and cools behind here, very loosely and very wet into wet. Right, I will go to my big oval mop and we'll start to get in some of these lovely light colours behind here, very much wet into wet. And I'm going to start again with the aureolin yellow because I want some nice lights back here around the sky before I put in stronger yellows. Right round, we'll drop oranges in a minute. And light blues going on behind there. Some more yellowy oranges happening down here. Just going to paint wet next to wet and wet into wet to give an impression of all these beautiful colours going on back here. Stronger yellows now, the cadmium yellow coming into that yellow. We're going to get the effect of night time here. And all these lovely, lovely colours. Just loose brushwork. All the way around and then across the figures as well. Don't be afraid to go across your figures. You're going to paint all this in. Nice and loose, nice and lively. Just really enjoy your painting. That's what it's all about. Bit of cerulean here and there from these figures. Get some shadows. Even a bit of cobalt. Feeling of these buildings behind, just blending and melting in these figures into the night. The buildings and the posts and the shadows. You can always work more dark in later. Figures behind here, a little bit darker perhaps in places, just to indicate them, and I think that'll do for what I want for that picture, just to show you how loosely we can paint. going to paint the background first, so in reverse, in the same sort of way, and then we'll put the figures in afterwards. Something we can stop on, so I've got to keep working at this very rapidly. Windows and whatever. Could be using a square brush now, but I haven't got time to change around. Neither do I wish to. I just want to indicate all these things in. That one for a little study. Now we'll work straight through again. This time we're going to work from the figures, and while they're still wet, work directly into the background. So again, I'm going to make up some darks first. Again, I don't think I need to do much more. It's nice and loose, it's nice and lively. We could put more on, but I don't think I need to. I'm not going to do a wet day, I'm not going to put all the reflections and things in. All I want is just this feeling of shape and light. So there we are, very loose ways to paint. Nighttime scenes in Egypt, the figures, the watercolour, the atmosphere, the mood.